president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
When we do have secret prisons, that is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening. I'm not Mark Levine. I'm Matt Robbins. I'm his conservative co-host sometimes when Mark's good enough to have me on. Mark is 2 or so minutes away. He'll be joining us momentarily. We've got a host of issues to discuss tonight, including the Edward Snowden affair, of course, the Al-Qaeda attacks, or threats of attack rather, on the embassies, all sorts of things like that. So I look forward to a nice show tonight. Once Mark gets here, we'll be in the thick of things. But as usual, I am sort of left here to tell you my point of view on most of these things. We're waiting for, I really don't know what to say, guys. I'm sorry. We can wait for Mark. We can start on the issues. I can tell you my feelings on the issues immediately. Okay, very good. We'll do that. Apologize for that delay there. There's our glorious co-host. I know he's going to want to talk about NSA.
I am, and I also want to talk about the Republican Party.
We can do that.
And
welcome to your show.
Thank you. Thank you. A little bit late to my own show, but better be late to your own wedding.
That's
right.
That's right. Or funeral.
I'm not sure how you started the show.
I didn't start it. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, well, that's good. That's
right.
good. Well, I wanted to talk about your philosophy and how it's reflected in today's Republican Party.
Absolutely.
Because, you're the executive director of the American Majority.
That's right.
A libertarian think tank.
We're not libertarians.
You're not libertarian.
We're conservatives.
You're conservative.
That's right.
But you've always had a libertarian
I've got a wild
bent.
libertarian streak in me. I do.
Okay, so basically you want to see as little government as possible.
That's the idea.
Right. So as Grover Norquist,
that's the idea in those documents that you always quote. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights,
I'm not so sure about
the
that.
Declaration of Independence.
I got the Constitution right here.
All those things.
And the preamble talks about forming a more perfect union, establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, providing for the common defense, promoting the general welfare.
What's the first line of
the blessings of liberty?
What's the first line of the First Amendment?
Well, the First Amendment, it's about not passing
What's
a law relating to religion.
What's the first line of the First Amendment?
You can't abridge.
Congress shall make no law. That's our motto. Congress shall make no law. It's John Boehner's motto as well.
Well, it is.
As we saw this week.
That's exactly the point I wanted to make. To be fair to the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion.
I didn't tell you I was going to quote the entire bill.
Prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. But that's exactly my point. You come from a philosophy that says, as Grover Norquist famously put it,
don't put me in the same bathtub
the government
as
should be
Grover
so
Norquist.
small that we can drown it in a bathtub.
He did say that.
Right. So the government that governs best governs least.
Grover also said that bipartisanship is another word for date rape.
Okay. So given that, and given the fact that this Congress is the least productive Congress in American history.
Right.
In all of recorded history, they have never found a Congress that has passed.
Going back to Hammurabi and the Egyptians,
going back
they have not been able to
long as they've kept records,
a less productive
they have
Congress.
never been able to find a Congress that has passed fewer bills or done less than the current Congress.
And good on them.
They can't even pass a budget to get us through to the next year.
If you would just
Most Congresses work hard April, May, June, July.
Mark,
this Congress hasn't started. So,
if you would just let the repeal of Obamacare go through, they've done that one 40 times.
Yes, and if you count the Senate, they've done it close to 60
Actually,
times.
most of those are procedurals, as you know.
Yes. So the heart of my question for you is, given that this is the least productive Congress ever, and given that you come from a governing philosophy that says the government really should do as little as possible, you must be awfully proud of the current Congress.
Well, I'm actually rather amazed that Speaker Boehner has actually grown a pair and said something so direct and toward the cameras. You have to look back to 2010 when the Tea Party formed and sent those new individuals. They brought the percentage down of re-election. Incumbents, as you know, in almost every cycle are re-elected 99% of the time in Congress. In 2010, it was
like
down
96, but it's pretty high.
It's almost 99 nowadays. I challenge you on that number.
Really? Okay.
But look at 2010. We got the number down to 80, closer to 80. It ought to be somewhere down to 60 or 50. We ought to be throwing these bums out every couple of years and trying something new. So I give Speaker Boehner some credit for actually acknowledging that a national mood, a national electorate sent enough people to his chamber, to the House, that said, we do not want any more laws like this enacted. We do not want any more ramrod actions like Obamacare, like the stimulus, like the bailouts, like TARP, any of these things sent through. So they have held the line. They've done what they were sent to do. You may not like it. You may think as a good card-carrying liberal that all laws, that the federal code should grow and grow and grow until it goes to the moon, but that's not the productivity measure of Congress, is to simply sit there and legislate and bang the gavel. We could name post offices and stretches of highway, Memorial Highway, all day
and that's
long.
pretty much all this Congress has done.
There's no rule that says we have to make more laws.
First of all, just to challenge your idea that this is what the people want.
Sure.
Okay. Congress also has probably the lowest approval rating ever.
It's below the teens, yeah.
Last I saw, it was in single digits, which has got to be a record. It's at 9% that approved of the current Congress. I don't know that there's a lower Congress in American history. I haven't checked that. But sometimes within the margin of error, it gets as high as 13, 14%.
There you go.
So there you go. All right. But to deal
much like unemployment.
To deal with your question about the people wanted this, I don't think I need to remind you that the majority of the American people that voted for Congress in 2012 in the House of Representatives voted for Democrats. A minority voted for Republicans. But because of the way they drew the district lines, the Republicans have understood that if you let the people vote, maybe only 80% of incumbents will be reelected. But if you draw district lines and very carefully and protect your district,
Republicans gerrymander.
Then, well, let's just say they're a lot better at it than we are because the Democrats won the elections of 2012, and yet the Republicans are still in control. So,
well, that's thanks to the census
you're not very good,
and the ability to redistrict.
You're not very good at appealing to the American people.
The rules are
but you are very good at drawing those lines.
The
and I got to give you credit for that.
And if you want to play by the rules, if you want to throw the rules out halfway through the game, you can. But if you want to play by
I want to throw gerrymandered rules out. Absolutely.
Well, if we can say
Iowa and California don't have them, and I'd make that 50 states.
If we can say that it'll happen in 2020, no matter who's in control, I'll shake your hand and do it today.
Let's do it. Let's get rid of gerrymandering. Absolutely. Let's let the people decide.
If we can do it blind, I'm happy to do it.
You can do it the way Iowa does it. For example, they communities of interest, and Iowa has very competitive elections.
But to let one party do it and then all of a sudden say, well, we don't like the outcome, so let's change this midstream.
I think the people should decide, and I think when the majority of people vote for a Democratic House of Representatives, they should get the speaker that the majority of the American people want, namely Nancy Pelosi, not John Boehner.
I don't think a majority of Americans want Nancy Pelosi as
That's
speaker.
how they voted in 2012.
I think that's an indirect coattail effect.
So in any case, a minority controls the House of Representatives.
That's right.
And through the power of that minority,
1/3 of the branches of government are controlled by the Republican Party, and we are the enemy. You can't do anything.
And because of that, y'all have done very, very good at what you do best: shutting the government down, obstructing the government, making sure that government can't work. Well, that's the plan. That's the plan,
right? Has there been one yet?
Come September, October.
So have we shut down the government yet?
Isn't that your plan?
Yeah, it's not my plan.
Senator Ted Cruz says that's his plan.
Senator Ted Cruz is not the minority leader.
He may not be, but there seems to be a lot of Tea Party people that are saying they need to shut. So here's my question: since you are a libertarian, since you are conservative,
we are.
With a libertarian bent,
absolutely,
and since you believe in as little government as possible,
we do.
Aren't you in favor of shutting the government down?
It depends on what you mean. I'll quote Clinton. It depends on what the meaning of is. If you want to shut down the government,
well, have no funding for anything.
That's not what a government shutdown is generally interpreted to be in the modern context.
There's been no budgets, I believe, passed on any of the branches of government. That's a record. Usually they get at least the agricultural bill out, but nope, not this year.
Well, they tried.
Usually they get the defense bill out.
They put a version of the ag bill.
Not this year.
They put a version of the ag bill through, but your side didn't like it.
As you know,
the one that ended food stamps.
The one that ended food stamps.
47 million Americans on food stamps is not enough.
The one that ended
in the Obama
that would have zero food stamps.
So we have to
the one that would have massive hungry Americans in roving bands, like in Sharknado, when they're out looking for some kind of
quote. I have arrived.
Looking to eat hungry people because of an apocalypse. That's the
like
country
a Cormac McCarthy novel. I love it.
That's the country that you
No Country for Old Men, right?
That's true. But so isn't the end of government at heart the goal of
the end of
your
bad
philosophy?
Government, the end of all-knowing, overflowing government. It cracks most Americans up. This majority you speak of, this common sense, Main Street, Middle America you speak of so often in the Democrat Party.
Democratic Party.
Democratic
Party.
I'm sorry.
We have the right to name our party. You have the right to name your party.
We'll call you names in private.
Otherwise, we'll call you the Repubs, which is also incorrect.
Most Americans find it absurd that there is a category of government worker called non-essential, and that those can be furloughed and those can be sent home and those can be told to stay at home during weather emergencies or during other, so-called emergencies. The question most Americans have is, what in God's name are those non-essential employees doing in their offices in the first place?
Let's talk
and
about what
they number
they're
in the
doing.
hundreds of thousands.
Let's talk about what
and
they're
they're
doing.
unionized,
They're
which
making
is
sure
a huge part of your party, so they can't be removed.
They're making
ever.
sure that people who apply for Social Security get Social Security.
Okay, every one of those bureaucrats is doing that.
No, they also they work in Medicare to make sure that
See,
that
and this
comes
is what
out.
you do. You go for the emotional heart. You go for the straw man argument.
That's what does a government employee do?
There are thousands of government employees.
There's a bunch of them in the Pentagon, which your party supports.
I will get the meat cleaver out there too, Mark.
All right.
I support sequester.
But
I do.
there are government employees that are analyzing where the best interstate highways
go to
should
lunch,
be,
analyzing what they're going to have for dinner, analyzing where they're going to live in Loudoun County.
Given that
the most affluent counties in America, circling the United States government, circling the Beltway here in Northern Virginia. Is that a coincidence?
Some of them are. There
are
other
the top three are right
affluent
here.
counties.
Fairfax, Loudoun, and Arlington, the top three.
There you go. There's a good case for government employment.
right
here in Northern Virginia.
I tell you. Screw the rest of the country.
Look, government actually has cut. We have the lowest non-discretionary spending that we've had in decades under President Obama.
Under the sequester deal that he didn't want to go into and got dragged kicking and screaming after he tried
Which
to play
you folks
chicken.
support.
After he tried to play chicken.
So let's talk about something very specific that just
pass
passed in Congress, and we may have to go into the next segment. It has to do with the transportation bill.
Yes.
So infrastructure spending way back in the long ago days of 2010. Okay, 3 years ago.
I thought you were going to quote Eisenhower.
No. 3 years ago, infrastructure spending was $66 billion or so dollars.
Okay.
The Republican leadership, John Boehner, put forward a plan to leadership, because they don't lead much, and I'll grant you that. Put forward a plan to cut that to $44 billion. Basically, take out 1/3 of all spending on retrofitting bridges and building highways and getting us out of traffic jams and giving us modern airports and modern trains. To cut 1/3 of it, talk about a meat cleaver.
Right.
And the Republican Party, the Republican Party couldn't get enough votes to pass a 1/3 cut. So now we have zero spending, at least if nothing happens in September, October, which I don't know if it will, on anything dealing with transportation. As someone who got stuck in traffic on the way out here, I can tell you
that's the Republicans' fault.
It is. I can tell you we need more infrastructure spending. So we got to take a break. When we come back, I want you to...
Clearly, we want people to die.
I want you to defend why the United States of America...
I'm surprised we're not out there blowing up the bridges
ourselves. Is falling behind Canada, Western Europe, Japan, and even China...
Whose train just went off the rails
as basic...
and killed everybody.
That's why they need better infrastructure, too. Folks, if you want to call in and join this debate, you can. Just pick up the phone and dial 571-749-1160.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Sam's? No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done.
D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right, Ed.
What are those?
Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time.
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired. You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs. Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, you know. Not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice-yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. The message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am Mark Levine. My guest is Matt Robbins. He is the executive director of the American Majority. I love having Matt on the show. He's a very nice guy. We just disagree all the time, and that's actually one of the reasons why I like to have him on the show. So as far as I can tell, Matt,
yes,
the current do-nothing Congress with the lowest approval rating, it appears in American history. I haven't checked that, but it's close.
Right.
But I do know it's the do-nothingest Congress. It's actually more do-nothing than the do-nothing Congress that Harry Truman complained about.
So you'd have to be do-nothingest.
It's the do-nothingest.
Yes.
It is the do-nothingest Congress. It has not passed a single budget bill, and in fact, the Tea Party wing of your party, the Republican Party, which appears to be the tail that wags the dog. I mean, I should say the dog that wags the tail, because they seem to be the majority of your party, want to shut down the government entirely if President Obama will not rescind Obamacare.
That's not the case.
I got news for you, Matt. He's not going to do it.
That's not the case.
Well, okay.
They're
Ted Cruz talks about that.
They're talking about stripping.
Even Paul Ryan talks about that.
They're talking about defunding Obamacare.
But they can't.
Okay.
You know the way that Obamacare works.
I know the way it's supposed to work. I also know the imperial executive fiats that Obama has now made not once but twice. Once in the case of the employer mandate, where he waved his wand and said, "No worries about that for a year." That's illegal.
So Republicans support fiats now.
Fiat number. This is Obama,
well, no,
not us. If you want to talk legalities,
no. But my point
Obama
is this.
then says, "Oh, you on Capitol Hill, Congress people and your staffs. Oh, you're not subject to it
You cannot
now."
force.
So are we making laws on the fly, or are we doing them by procedure?
You cannot force the death of Obamacare. I'm sorry.
So, but Obama can alter it however he wishes.
Well, President Obama,
by
as the executive, has the power to issue executive orders.
I thought it was a congressional bill that was passed in committees and reconciliation
many congressional bills
conference.
Give authorities to the executive.
Is that written in this bill? I don't know. I had to pass it over. I get to see what was in it. I didn't get a chance to read it first.
My point is this. Obamacare is not going anywhere.
I agree.
Okay, so this plan
But if Obama can strip certain parts of it, then they can defund certain parts of it.
This plan to shut down the
government. They have the power of the purse, Mark. You know that better than I do. You were a creature of capitalism.
Oh, they have the power to shut down the government.
No. They have the power to strip funding for that bill. They do, for the implementation of that bill.
You see, but
whether or not it results in other things.
But to do that, the House has to pass the bill, and then the Senate has to pass the bill, and the President has to sign the bill.
I would love to see
or he can veto it, and if he vetoes it, it requires 2/3.
I would love to see.
I think it's safe to say that that's never going to happen.
And I would dare say your president has raised the stakes on this to the point where we are now.
Okay, so since that's never going to happen, is it really wise for all these members of Congress from the Tea Party wing of the party to go home to rural Alabama and tell people
they're always Southern?
There's also rural Nebraska as well,
and Michigan, just an homage.
Well, Michigan, has it depends on how you redistrict it. My point is this: they're going to go home and they're going to tell people we're going to stop Obamacare, and they're not either they're lying to themselves or they're lying to
tell people we're going to try to defund Obamacare. We're going to try to defund implementation of Obamacare, which is completely in their power to do.
And it's going to fail.
There was a thing called the Vietnam War in the 60s.
And you recognize it's going to fail.
Congress defunded it in the 70s.
Yes.
And the war actually stopped. Congress didn't have the ability to stop that war.
Because the American people wanted the defunding, and because Congress wanted it.
That war.
And Congress wanted it. But this Congress doesn't want that.
What's good for the goose?
So, will you admit now, or will you admit later on live television that this tactic will never succeed, and that these people are lying either to the constituents or to themselves, or possibly both? They may well be lying both.
I think they're saying we're going to try to do the jujitsu that the president himself is doing
by shutting down the government.
Not at all. The president's not trying to shut the government down. The president's trying to go cafeteria style on his own bill, which was faulty when it was passed, and rammed through in a special conference.
I love it that the only thing you've complained about
and choose, and so when we do it, suddenly it's completely off limits.
So far, the only
just like gerrymandering.
So far, the only thing you've complained about Obamacare is that the President Obama is delaying its implementation. I can understand some on the left complaining about that, but for you to complain about that seems a little disingenuous.
If it's such a great bill, why didn't he let it kick in before 2012?
I would not have.
If it's such a great bill, why isn't he letting it kick in before 2014?
I would not have delayed implementation.
It's going to cost his party.
That wasn't my decision.
Complete control of both houses.
Given that your party,
he's not a bad campaigner, he's a bad implementer.
Given that that your party makes it so hard to have anyone appointed by filibustering all the candidates.
That's the bottleneck of Obamacare.
That is a bottleneck.
Not the firms laying off their employees and making them part-time. None of that is the problem.
You don't think shutting down the government is going to work?
I don't think it's going to happen, Mark. I think it's a pipe dream on your side.
Well, no, we don't want to shut down the government. We would love it. I admit it.
Yes.
We would love it for your party to be idiotic enough to shut down the government to try to stop Obamacare.
It's not going to happen.
If it's not going to happen, then why is Congress going home on a nice little 6-week vacation when they've got homework to do that was due in May, June, and July?
They have not eaten their vegetables.
Of passing a budget.
They have not eaten their vegetables
The fiscal year begins October 1st.
It does.
They plan to come back in mid-September?
Yes.
And do
Post-Labor Day.
I suspect we'll have the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 2013 that throws some 100,000-page bill in, along with a lot of lobbyist goodies, and that's what's going to come through the House?
And these things happen, Mark. You act like you're shocked. This happens every single cycle.
It's your party
exaggerated
doing it.
now. It's exaggerated now because this brinksmanship that you're speaking of.
Right. That your party is doing.
The president kicked this football off when he rammed Obamacare through.
Now wait just a second.
The way he did it.
Wait just a second. When the president signed a bill that passed a majority of the House and 60 senators into law, that somehow is a reason for the Republicans to cease legislating, stop all budget bills, and throw everything in a 100,000-page omnibus bill 1 week before it's due. Somehow that's President Obama's fault.
No, I didn't say it was his fault. I said he kicked off this game of brinksmanship. If he can't
passing a law?
If he can't take
apparently you pass one law in Congress and the Tea Party says that's brinksmanship. How dare you pass a law?
Obamacare was a little bit more than just a regular law.
Well, Medicare was passed too, and Social Security was passed
and those were passed
too.
with bipartisan support. Those weren't passed with single party, minority or majority rule. Those were passed in bipartisan
fashion. Actually, Republicans hated Social Security.
They did hate it, but
and
some of them voted for it.
In 1936,
some of them voted
ran
for it.
against Social Security.
Vote from Republicans. Not one.
Actually, I think there
olive
was
branch.
one. The guy in Louisiana, the Chow, I think was his name.
You're right. The guy who was there after William Jefferson's term.
I think they did get one.
And he still lost. He still lost the re-elect.
Yeah, he did. But I think they did get one Republican vote.
There's an asterisk there.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But why are you opposed?
Why am I opposed
to Republicans shutting the government down? Isn't that what you want?
Mark, the government we're not asking to shut down the Defense Department and Social Security or Medicare. We're talking about a bill that poll after poll today, you spoke of the majority earlier in the episode.
Let's talk about transportation.
Shows they do not want Obamacare. Poll after poll after poll after poll.
You're not,
employers
you're welcome
are
to
laying
run
off employees.
In 2016 against Obamacare, the same way you ran against Social Security in 1936, and Alf Landon got 2 states, and Roosevelt got the other 46.
If you want to run in the current system, you can. That's what I said about gerrymandering. Right. That's what we have to do.
But you're going to have to win an election before you do that.
Agreed.
Now, in the meantime, there's something called governing, and our bridges are falling apart.
And actually, governing always means spending more money. It never means holding tight. In a recession.
Regards to transportation and infrastructure, it does cost money to retrofit bridges. It does cost money to build highways and to build airports.
How much is enough?
And how much is enough?
Right.
How about the $66 billion that was spent in 2010?
So you would cap it there?
I'd be fine with that.
And you wouldn't adjust it for inflation, and you wouldn't say we need 1/3 more.
We could argue about how much inflation's very low right now.
Okay.
So we could argue.
Why is inflation low right now?
Inflation is low because the President of the United States and the Federal Reserve have kept
because we're in a recession,
low.
A jobless recession, a non-recovery,
Here's what I understand, Matt.
A weak, unemployed economy.
Inflation is low. Interest rates are low.
Sure.
Wages are low and dropping in some cases. Unemployment is still relatively high. Now is the best time, you have to agree, to hire American workers.
It's no longer a debate.
To retrofit our bridges. It's cheaper to borrow. It's cheaper to spend. Labor costs are down. Unemployment is high. We need a new deal. As I drive around Washington, D.C., the best bridges, the really pretty ones, the stone ones, the ones that last a long time while the bridges from the 60s are falling apart, are those bridges built in the 1930s under the New Deal. I drive down the George Washington Parkway, beautiful parkway.
And they got the date right there on the bridge.
Built in the 1930s.
Excellent.
Isn't
amazing how your selective memory works.
We need infrastructure.
Right.
Isn't now the absolute
No one's
best
going to
time?
argue that we need infrastructure, but another spending bill on top of the other things we've already mentioned tonight is not the answer in a time when Americans are tightening their belts and watching a hog-wild Washington throw off that money I talked about earlier.
Now is not the time.
Now is not the time.
I'm sure in the time of the Great Depression, you would have said, now is not the time. We're spending too much money.
I probably would have.
Unemployment is too high.
I probably would have.
You probably would have.
Yeah.
And Herbert Hoover, I think, also won.
And he lost the election.
3 or 4 states.
Absolutely.
Not very many.
Mark, it's a philosophical disagreement. You can argue the federal government exists on a bubble and some sort of reality that's not akin to the experience of the average American. The average American still sees an economy that is sputtering. They still see an economy that is probably...
That's why we need to spend.
Probably in reality 10 or 12%. But Mark, when you talk about rebuilding bridges and rebuilding roads, who does that labor? Unions. Unionized labor does
Great.
It's great for your party. It's not great for Main Street America. It's not
Let me
great
tell you
for
why
folks
it's great for Main Street
who
America.
don't live in states where unions have a huge stake in the game.
First of all, highways and bridges are everywhere. I don't know a single state in the United States that has bridges and highways.
They ship them in Virginia from Maryland and D.C. to build the metro. They've shipped them in every single day since they voted the $1.5 billion expansion.
The reason why
the game is rigged, the rules are broken, and Main Street America knows it. That's why they don't want to spend money. Because it's wasted by your autocratic party.
Is because when you pay somebody $1 an hour, and you use some illegal, someone undocumented immigrant to fix things. Well, if you're going to pay $1 an hour, most American citizens won't do that.
Let's be realistic. Nobody pays $1.
I don't know. Your party's is against the minimum wage.
Where it says not Saipan.
The point is that if you have unionized workers, you know what the people do? They actually earn enough not only to make a living,
to pay their dues,
but to
contribute to Democrat politicians,
to spend money,
to fund
on
Hillary's
vacations,
campaign, to fund Obama's campaign,
to buy
$500 million
I'm talking about Joe Sixpack.
last cycle.
No, I'm not talking about.
And all those Joe Sixpack's monies flow up into the machine. You know this.
It's crazy.
You know this.
The Koch brothers, the people you worship.
Now there's the problem.
The third and fourth richest people in the United States.
How dare someone do the same thing that unions are doing? How dare they do that?
Which of course costs them nothing, and it kills you.
They just write it off.
Joe Sixpack
they just write it off.
Can donate $1.
He's not donating. It's mandatory. It's compulsive dues.
You know what happens when Joe Sixpack gets more money, which is why I'm glad that the people are in McDonald's are asking for more money and in Walmart.
It's going to make a happier planet.
When they have more money. No. When they have more money.
I'm sorry. Did Walmart get to come into Washington or not?
They spend it.
Has the vote been cast? Is it tonight?
I hope they don't.
Okay. So you'd rather have those folks have no access to fresh fruit and groceries and textiles.
When Walmart comes in, it costs the taxpayer money.
Okay.
Because what it does, it puts
I thought you were for spending taxpayer money. I thought you were for that.
I'm not for corporations but pushing their burdens on the
evil
American
corporations.
People. Yeah, because when Walmart...
Only faceless parties and politicians.
Matt, when Walmart comes in, what happens is more people have to go on Medicaid.
I see.
More people have to go on Medicaid.
I see.
More people have to go on all these...
I've read nickel and dime too.
Stamps.
I've read nickel and dime
Because when you don't pay anyone a decent wage, you have
$8.50
more
is not a decent
people
wage
on
for someone
food
working
stamps.
part-time at Walmart. $8.50 is not a decent wage.
Costco pays their workers a decent wage.
Oh, and Costco just so happens to be a huge supporter and donator to Obama.
Costco
This is my shock
recognizes
face.
that if you pay workers enough, then they can afford to
and
buy things.
They're getting no subsidies and no kickbacks
like
and no tax breaks and no special deals on property.
No kickbacks that I'm aware of.
I'll find them
and
for you.
And you know what?
I guarantee you they're there.
They pay their workers a decent wage.
I guarantee you they're there.
Which is why there's a Costco in D.C. and not a Walmart. Folks, if you want to join this discussion, we want to encourage you to do that.
It's a banana republic.
It's 571-749-1166. You can call in and ask yourself whether or not you believe that we should spend on infrastructure like bridges and roads, or maybe you believe we should just let them all fall apart. And then ask yourself, should we pay workers a decent wage? Or maybe we should try to rival Mexico and treat them as badly as they possibly can in the hopes that Americans will leave and go somewhere else.
But great food.
Let me know what you think. We'll be back after
this. Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands. Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex. Half of the people in the world living with AIDS are women. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we can change this reality. Let's strive for a world free of violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. At Volunteers of America, we don't just help people, we help people help themselves. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Contact Volunteers of America today call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No. 127 consecutive.
Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am your host, Mark Levine, talking with Matt Robbins. Now, Matt, I want to try to take some time, do a little give and take here.
We've calmed down.
I'll give you some. I'll give you time to speak. Give me a chance to speak here. With regard to infrastructure,
yes,
you can see that we do need some.
Sure.
That any growing country needs to fix its bridges and its roads and so forth. Okay. Given that that's true, in my view, it's best to spend at a time of high unemployment and low wages and low interest rates and low inflation. Do you think we should spend at a time of low unemployment and high wages? Or would you agree that now is a better time than, say, in 1999 when Bill Clinton was president and the country was rolling very well?
I was going to say we should get in a time machine and go back to 96, but whatever. Your argument is sound in that we always need to be repairing our infrastructure as we go, but these giant stimulus bills, these giant pork-laden special projects and shovel-ready so-called jobs that we've seen before. We've seen this in 2009. We don't need to see this again. Fool me once is what the American people say. We say spend it more wisely, spend it more aptly, spend it more sensibly. We're tightening our budgets, we're tightening our belts, we're balancing our checkbooks, and yet Washington always needs a little bit more revenue, a little bit more tax dollars from me, whether it's a half cent here in the sales tax in your locality or a new gas tax like in Virginia, or on and on it goes. And we're the ones footing the bill.
Okay, so let's talk about some of that, where that money went.
Let's do.
I happen to live near the Wilson Bridge.
Okay.
I love the Wilson Bridge.
Good for you.
The Wilson Bridge used to be crowded and dangerous and full of traffic, and now you go past it very, very quickly.
They fought the war to end all wars.
That to me is money well spent.
To you.
Right.
But there's another
And I understand that the people in Colorado need a bridge, and the people in Minnesota, and in fact, one of the most well-needed bridges, apparently, is in between Kentucky, Senator McConnell's home state, and Paul Ryan's district in Ohio. Apparently, that bridge is falling apart, and the people there want a bridge, but their own representatives won't support a bridge for their own area. You agree that now's the time to spend. Give me some example of some of this pork that you think is
something that's pork?
Yeah, because the last bill, as I recall, was mostly tax cuts because that's what you Republicans wanted.
Well, there was a good chunk of it that was tax cuts.
Right, so
40%.
And you love that part.
We do.
Okay, so which bridge did you not want?
You act like we should. Well, first of all, we're not. It's not an either or. It's not kill Granny or get your tax refund.
Which Granny did you want dead?
We want no grannies dead. We want everybody to be safe and secure.
But for you, any kind of government spending is pork.
Not at all. Not at all. But when you collectivize and centralize this planning and this spending, whether it's from the Department of Transportation, DOT, right here in Washington, D.C., or any of the 50 state versions of that. Virginia has a DOT, Arkansas has a DOT. When you centralize, bureaucratize, unionize all these monies.
You're against state highways? You're against interstate highways?
Eisenhower is a hero of mine.
But Eisenhower put forward all those terrible highways with the blue and red signs. They get us very fast from one place to another. That was centralized socialist bureaucracy, wasn't it?
That was a very loosely guided a nationwide project that was couched in defense, and that was before federal employees and their subcontractors. It was before federal employees and their contractors could be unionized. It was pre-1963.
Really, you're arguing that
John F. Kennedy allowing that to happen.
Your goal is basically to take middle-class Americans and pay them less.
Not at all.
That middle-class Americans, lower middle-class Americans, the guys working in that 100-degree heat with all that tar
because
that we
someone's
see
got
out
a gun
there,
to his head.
You think they need to half their wages?
I never said any of these words. You're putting all this in my mouth.
No, but if you don't want them to be in unions,
when you're talking
then you're going to have to cut
when
their
you're talking
wages.
about the modern face of unions today, something that Samuel Gompers, George Meany, FDR, JFK would have been against, this federal unionization of employees and subcontractors, they would have been against it. When you're talking about wages like that and fraud and corruption and abuse on that level, and monies that flow into one side of the political equation only, hell yes, I'm against it. I'm not for cutting wages.
Your main argument against unions
Look at the dullest toll road.
Is that unions support
Not
fair
at all.
wages?
Not at all.
And they do it in the political system.
Not at
and
all.
since the Republicans want to cut wages, the Democrats want to raise wages. Unions support the people who want to raise their wages, and people should never support.
I drove here.
Industrialists should give lots of money to the party that gives them massive corporate subsidies, but working class people should never support people who want to increase working class wages.
There's a thing called the free market. I'm going to give you my copy of Adam Smith. You can read that.
You know what Adam Smith said?
What did he say?
Adam Smith.
I know lots of things he said.
The founder of the Invisible Hand said in The Wealth of Nations, 1776, he talked about the need for government regulation to ensure a free and fair market. That part of Adam Smith is never talked about by people on your side.
And in his most fevered nightmare, he couldn't imagine what it's grown to. Mark, I drove here on the dullest greenway tonight. 15 beautiful, pristine miles. It's not even asphalt. It's some Star Trek 21st century mix. It's a public-private partnership, partly owned by the state of Virginia taxpayers, partly owned by the government of Australia and another corporation there. Those sorts of solutions are everywhere, but nobody wants to look to those. Everybody wants to look to the greenway, not the toll road, the greenway.
I understand.
There's a difference.
The one that goes to Leesburg, right?
The one that goes past Leesburg out to...
And it's about 15 miles?
It's about 15 miles.
And how much does that cost you?
I don't have the figures at hand.
That's right.
But I can tell you...
They don't even tell you. They just think it's smart tag. I think it's $5 or $6.
But it's based on user demand. It's based on user demand.
I think it's $5 or $6 for 15
No, it cost
miles.
me $5.40 to get here tonight. You're right.
There you go.
It did.
So I know. I've been on the Dulles Greenway.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I go around.
When you wanted to see how the other half lived.
I don't want to pay because to me...
And that's your choice in a free market.
To pay $1.
That's your choice in a free market.
3 miles. Think about that. You drive to California, that's 3,000 miles, that's $1,000. That's $1 every 3 miles.
We have hot lanes now on the Beltway. We have hot lanes. And you can choose to use them or not to use them.
And I was late today and I still didn't use them.
There you go. Well, that's your choice. That's your choice. A free market allows for you to do whatever the heck you want to do.
The problem with that is that presumes
is that those tax dollars are not going.
No, that presumes that all of us are super wealthy multimillionaires who have unlimited money
Sometimes
to spend.
I take the Greenway 5 times a day just for fun, just to burn money.
Well, I would think so because apparently it's no big deal to you.
It's once every 2
and
weeks.
And me, to get around the Delaware toll road, I drive 4 miles out of the way.
Delaware and Jersey are a different,
so that I don't
different story.
In Delaware, you have to pay $5 or $6 to go like 20 miles.
Those are unionized. Those toll roads are unionized. They're not public-private. Those are state and federal highways. You just made my point for me.
No,
you did.
You made no point at all.
Those are more expensive than the private-public partnership. Those are more expensive
Actually, they're cheaper.
They're not.
They're cheaper.
I just drove them this
Delaware
weekend.
Delaware is one of the most important.
I just drove them this weekend.
It's about the same cost.
I spent $18
and you get a little bit
up
further.
and down to New Jersey.
Yeah, well, you get a lot farther in New Jersey than you do on the Greenway.
So now it's miles, not money. Okay, you're moving the goalpost, but
no,
whatever.
I'm saying that the Greenway, I believe, is the most expensive per mile toll road in the country.
We'll look that up.
It's very close to it. My point is this. Roads are a public good.
They are.
Bridges are a public good.
They are, and they should be open to competition.
They allow goods to go back and forth. They help big business because truckers
Are you about to quote Elizabeth Warren on me? Are you about to say I didn't build this?
I love Elizabeth Warren,
I know you do.
You didn't build this.
Well, you didn't either.
No.
But you're forcing me with a gun to my head by taking my tax dollars. You're forcing me to build whatever road project your government says is best.
I know what you want. You want every time you go down a block, you put a quarter in the stop sign. Then you go another block and you put another quarter in. Then you make a left turn.
Actually,
you put another quarter in because every road
I want a horse and buggy.
Every road should be privately owned,
road.
right?
Yeah.
And that way, every single time you turn a corner, you better have a lot of change available. Or I guess a smart tag would do it. And so every trip would cost $25.
I'll put my monocle on before I get in the car.
Government providing roads and bridges is something that most Americans...
I'm sorry, how does government earn revenue? What do they produce?
By taxpayers.
That's right. So they're taking our money, your money, and mine.
I am happy to spend my tax money
on
roads and bridges and airports. Yes,
most Americans are not.
Most Americans do not want to pay.
Not at the exorbitant corruption
We'll see if people want to call in. But I don't think most Americans want every time they turn the corner to pay another 25 cents.
That's a false choice. There's a happy medium where competition is welcomed, where projects are bid, where contracts are not sweetheart, where unions are not the only ones at the table, and where you can find a way to build this stuff in a sensible economic way.
What about bridges that are already there?
What do you mean?
Well, you have to retrofit bridges.
Absolutely you do.
They get old after a while.
And you have inspectors who say this one must be done first.
And otherwise they can collapse.
You have prioritized lists.
That's exactly right. And we have that list.
Yeah, we do.
You know what? We're decaying.
Agreed.
We're crumbling. In Europe, in Japan, even
Europe,
in China,
where the train just crashed.
Even in China,
really
in Spain,
fast, the brand new train.
The conductor was going 120 miles an hour in a 50-mile zone. Unfortunately, that can't be prevented by technology, and that conductor's in jail, and appropriately so. And I hope he's.
But this is what y'all do. Y'all scare the public into saying we've got to have the money now for everything, and we've got to do this moonshot $100 trillion plan.
Have you been to Europe before?
Many times.
Okay, so you know that if you've been to London.
I have.
London, you can get from the airport to the center of town by a high-speed train.
And
have you been to Paris?
And a camera will see you every step of the way.
You can get from Paris, from the airport,
the tunnel,
to the center of town.
You can get from London to the airport.
You could do it in Rome.
Right.
You could do it in Amsterdam.
Right.
You name me a Western European capital, and I guarantee you.
So you're on the record on live TV as wanting America to be Western Europe. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that New York.
Because most Americans do not want America to be Western
and
Europe.
Los Angeles and Chicago are as good as London, Paris, and Rome, and I don't think the Europeans should live in the 21st century while we have the horse and buggy standards of your party.
Well, America was not built on the same population densities or the same demographics that Western Europe was.
You're probably against the road to Dulles, right?
Which road?
The Silver Line.
Of course I am.
Of course you are.
It's government expansion. It's gigantic. It's riddled with waste.
And
it's
yet,
a union payout.
Again, in London and in Paris and in Rome and in China and in Japan, they have 21st century technology. You know, one reason you can get people off the roads is if you have transportation to airports.
Not true. That's not true. I mean, to airports, you're right. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last tail end of that sentence.
Well, that's what I'm arguing.
But just building metro out to here and there just creates more urban sprawl. We've seen it in Los Angeles. We've seen it here.
What about Japan and Paris?
Look at the
and
original
London
grid.
And Amsterdam.
That's a much more tight.
Toronto.
It's a different culture. Those are European cultures in Canada as well. It's a European culture. It is. It's the Canadian culture.
Aren't most Americans from Europe?
Well, 300
Don't we
years
have
ago,
a European
yes.
culture?
Not anymore.
Is Canada
we
more?
We rebelled
Canada's
against
more
that.
European than we are.
Canada is still a subject of the crown, technically.
Very technically.
Well, I mean, they are very European in their outlook.
And you use that as an insult.
Not as an insult. I say they can do it their way. This competition thing is beautiful. It works in every way you want it to work. If you want to have a parliament in the style of the British Parliament, if you want to have all the trappings of Europe,
you know what?
You can do it. But if you want to be an American,
I don't think having a
and
train
have this
to the
frontier
airport,
mentality.
I don't think having a train to the airport
I'm okay
and
with a train
21st
to the
century
airport.
technology means that suddenly we've abandoned our Constitution.
When you said Silver Line, I thought you meant all the way out to
Israel.
Loudoun County, not just the Dulles expansion.
No, all the way out to Dulles.
I'm okay with an airport train, but then becomes other lines around it. And then you've got urban sprawl. We have 4 million people, Mark, living in the Beltway area on a postage stamp.
I'm okay.
There's no amount of trains you can
with the
build.
People of Loudoun County.
There's no amounts of train you can build to get those numbers off the roads.
I'm okay with the people of Loudoun County paying for extensions past Dulles
The most affluent
Airport.
County in America.
Past Dulles Airport.
There you go.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well, that's because you don't live there. It's because you're not the one paying that tax property rate.
Well, listen. I live in Alexandria. We have a metro. I would have paid extra taxes to bring that metro to my door.
I'll bring my
and I'm
tax
glad
bill.
we have it.
You would have. I'll bring my tax bill in. I've got a new half-cent sales tax in Leesburg. Not in Loudoun County, they don't.
You know what? In D.C., they have the second. We use the metro's second most after
and
New
you're
York.
built on a more tight grid.
That's right. Boston, they use it.
Who designed
San
D.C.?
Francisco, they
Who
use
designed
it.
D.C.?
L'Enfant.
L'Enfant. Was he European or American?
You know what? He liked to be called Pete. He's named Pierre L'Enfant, but if you look him up,
he designed
Washington. He liked to be
Washington
called Pete.
On a
and
circle.
only in history know him as Pierre L'Enfant. But he considered himself an American. Very much Pete L'Enfant, and I think he did a pretty good job. I think he designed.
I'll give you that one just for pulling
Washington D.C. pretty well. Folks, if you want to call in, it's your last chance. Please feel free to do. 571-749-1166. We'll be right back. Right after this, we'll talk more about Pete L'Enfant, the designer.
Who's laughing in his grave
the designer of Washington,
as we stay stuck in traffic.
Like to be known
He's
as
laughing
Pete.
in his
You
grave.
look it up. It's true. It's a matter of history.
Around the world, 1 out of every 3 women will be beaten or otherwise abused in their lifetime, often by a family member or loved one. A future free from violence. It's all she's ever wished for.
Did you know you have the power to stop children from joining gangs? You can help a father find a job and home for his family. You can assist a woman who can't afford the medicine she needs to live and the home she can't live without. You can choose to make a difference in our community. Support Volunteers of America, and you can help improve the lives of nearly 2 million Americans each year with programs and services that help individuals and families overcome their challenges to become as independent as possible. Support the programs that are working in our community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
For some folks, saving for the future is easy, but for you, it might take a little more effort. Saving for your future is your responsibility, and there's a lot to save for.
I never thought of that.
Like your child's education, perhaps uncovered medical expenses, or just to be sure you can live the way you want when you retire. The time is now to save for tomorrow. Save now or work forever. The choice is yours. Choose to save.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am Mark Levine, your host. I'm here with Matt Robbins, Executive Director of the American Majority. Matt, I want to turn to Virginia discussion since we are here in Northern Virginia. And the Republican governor who seems to think that it's just fine to take bribes as long as you can find some kind of technical loophole. So there was no specific law in Virginia about paying for your daughter's wedding. Or even you can buy the governor a Rolex, which he's normally supposed to declare, but no, it was given to his wife as a gift to him. And the $170,000 were just loans to corporations controlled entirely by the governor and his wife. I'm not quite sure how he justifies the shopping spree for the wife, Bergdorf, Goodman, wherever that was. This may well be legal under Virginia law, which apparently is the most lax in the country. My question for you is, number one, should Virginia tighten its graft laws? And number two, should Governor McDonnell resign immediately, as I suggest?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as legal graft, not even in Virginia. The things that happened, the shopping sprees, the gifts to family members, the gifts indirectly to himself are illegal, and they are illegal not only because they are graft, but also because they were not disclosed. Virginia's very laissez-faire laws about campaign finance are simple: unlimited donations, full disclosure.
But Governor McDonnell argues that he didn't have to disclose because it went to his wife and his daughter and his corporation, but not directly to him. Even the Rolex watch, he said, went to his wife, who then gave it to him.
Right. That's why he wears it instead of her.
Right.
No, look, I will not defend Bob McDonnell. I have defended Bob McDonnell in years past. Bob McDonnell has been a conservative champion until doing such things as transportation bills and metro expansion in the past year and a half.
This is about politics. This is about corruption.
I'm talking on all levels. I think he has left the reservation. So Bob McDonnell, I think, will probably resign, probably in a slow news month like August.
He's going to resign in the next few weeks.
Most likely, in order to avoid prosecution and get a deal.
Here's the thing. I don't know that he resigning avoids prosecution.
No, it'll be a plea deal. I mean, if he steps down, they won't prosecute.
Well,
you're talking about
my problem. First of all, is these laws. I don't know if they can prosecute because these laws are so lax.
There were quid pro quos.
I hope
there were
they
appointments
do.
made, and there were meetings set up. There were quid pro quos.
So you predict before August is out, we will have.
I think it's highly
the Lieutenant
likely.
Governor Bob Bowling will be Bill Bowling, will be the new Virginia governor, a person who, if possible, detests the Republican nominee for governor, Ken Cuccinelli, as much as or more than the Democrats do.
Well, Bob McDonnell was no friend of Ken Cuccinelli. He's never been a close ally or a political ally of him.
And Ken Cuccinelli, of course, has come up with some very strange positions, everything from defending sodomy laws to supporting transvaginal probes on women to wanting to make it illegal to not discriminate against gay people. He's got his share of things.
I don't recall those, but
the Virginia the Virginia universities had a policy of non-discrimination, and Cuccinelli insisted that they could not discriminate.
Okay.
They were required to discriminate.
If you say so.
He did. He said it was illegal for them to have policy of non-discrimination unless.
But Ken's not on trial here. Bob is.
No, he's running for governor.
Right. And speaking of graft, Ken's running against Terry McAuliffe, who has been nothing but a bag man and a hustler for every Democrat candidate of the last 30 years.
Terry McAuliffe is a political campaign manager, so it's his job to raise money.
Corruption and fraud.
Well,
companies have been charged with corruption.
First of all,
and fraud.
The SEC action is.
I love this.
It's illegal.
The shoe never feels quite so good.
It's illegal to disclose it. And apparently, Republican Senator Charles Grassley did it for political reasons, and he himself should pay for that. The man is innocent. There's no evidence that any of that's true, and we'll see what happens. It's also not a criminal case. it's a regulatory case.
Agreed, but it reflects
which
on
is very, very, very different. Ken Cuccinelli, is he going to be hurt by having Bill Bolling as governor? And
well, it's a brief governorship. I mean, if
it would be for
Bolling's
what,
in.
4 months?
Right. Yeah, and really, the holidays taking most of that. I don't think Ken will be hurt. I think the election will be determined. Ken is from Fairfax County. I've known Ken for 11 years now. Ken has run 3 campaigns in Northern Virginia and 1 statewide as Attorney General. Ken's no stranger.
And he's moved increasingly to the right every time he's
Ken's
run.
no stranger to grassroots organizing and grassroots politics.
I thought you were going to say graft.
No, to grassroots organizing.
That's what I heard.
And mobilizing, which is what I teach every day at American Majority. We train people to do the things Ken Cuccinelli does to win elections. Bill Bolling can sit there and pontificate, and I guess after Labor Day and October until Thanksgiving hits and Christmas hits, and be the moderate of your dreams. And he can sit there and say he's governing Virginia.
But here's the point.
The truth is, it's not going to hurt Ken.
The distinction between Bolling and Cuccinelli in Virginia is a microcosm for the problem of the Republican Party nationwide.
I don't see that at all.
54% of the Republican Party nationwide wants it to be more conservative. Now, this is a Republican Party that would consider Ronald Reagan a flaming liberal.
I disagree.
Would consider Richard Nixon
completely.
a flaming liberal.
I agree with that. Not Reagan.
Ronald Reagan believed in government spending.
No,
he increased government spending.
He did.
Year after year.
He did. Mostly defense to win the Cold War.
Not only defense, he also
defense.
He also, I'll tell you something else that Ronald Reagan did. Ronald Reagan worked with the Democrats. He worked with Tip O'Neill. President Obama has offered the Republicans something that you have talked about a lot, that it seems, if you talk to Republicans, the thing they most want, the thing they most care about, it's a deal on taxes.
Right.
They want to lower the corporate tax rate. And President Obama said, all right, I'll make you a deal, Republicans. We'll have full tax reform. We'll talk about the corporate tax rate. We'll talk about the personal income tax rate. We'll have full tax reform if you'll give me something that increases middle-class jobs. And Republicans said, no way. We want unemployment to be high, and we're so determined to have unemployment high, we'll give up our love of cutting taxes because we want you to fail. That was amazing to me.
That's a bit of a misrepresentation.
Did they not refuse the grand bargain that Obama suggested to include corporate tax reform and other tax reform in return for middle-class jobs packages?
You've seen the Peanuts cartoon. You've seen when Lucy holds the football and swears to Charlie Brown she's not going to move it away this time. And Charlie Brown believes her and goes running and screams through the air as she moves it yet again. I'm glad you brought up Reagan. Reagan got suckered by Tip O'Neill, who told him he would not raise taxes in his first term, and he did. Poppy Bush, H.W. beloved president, number 41, got suckered by the Democrats who controlled Congress in 1990. They raised taxes after he promised to do something he promised he would not do in the primaries, which is raise taxes. We understand how these things are done. I agree with you. If the deal could be brokered by an arbiter or a third nonpartisan party, and we could be sure one side was going to hold up their end of the deal, hell yes, I would say. Just like all the guys opposed in the primary, I would say I'll take $9 in cuts for $1 in increased spending. But that deal, is never going to go through your party.
I had no idea that Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush were benighted idiots. I thought both presidents knew how to read. I thought both of them could actually read a bill or have people read it for them and tell them what it is before they signed it. This idea that, oh my God, the Republicans are going to get snookered. The difference between Lucy and the football and legislation is legislation comes with words.
Right.
And you can actually read what's written before you sign it.
Reagan trusted Tip O'Neill.
Lucy did not have a signed contract with Charlie Brown.
When she was a psychiatrist for 5 cents, she did.
Tip O'Neill
Reagan trusted
had
Tip's
a law.
handshake and his word.
All Ronald Reagan had to do was veto that law.
And he did.
All George W. Bush had to do was veto that law.
You're right.
All the Republicans have to do,
and what would the
if they
outcry have
don't
been?
like the deal, is don't pass the deal.
So we've come full circle. We've come full circle to a Congress that's not willing to pass the deals that President Obama is trying to shove through the country's throat.
Now, you call it
and
shove.
You say
I'm talking about
we
compromise.
should do that in retrospect.
President
it would
Obama,
be noble to have done that in retrospect, but now it's unseemly.
I supported what Reagan and George W. Bush did. That's why I consider them
raised taxes.
More moderate than the current
They
Republican Party.
weren't.
My point is this. This is the grand bargain the Republicans say they
so-called.
always wanted. That you said to me when we debate that you wanted. You want full tax reform. Obama says, let's get in the room. Let's do tax reform. And I want to combine it with helping lower the unemployment rate.
We don't trust this president.
You don't trust any Democratic president.
That's
you didn't
not
trust Bill Clinton.
Well,
you tried to run him out.
He never had any issues with personal credibility,
the president before that was Jimmy Carter. You certainly didn't trust him.
We did trust Jimmy Carter. We did.
Oh, Republicans ran him out on a rail.
Well, they did
and before him,
before
him was Lyndon Johnson.
Well, you're naming some real Hall of Fame trustworthy men there, Mark.
Republicans didn't trust Harry Truman. They were against him.
I would trust
and they didn't
Harry
trust
Truman.
Franklin Roosevelt.
I would trust Franklin Roosevelt.
Woodrow Wilson. We can go back any.
I wouldn't trust Woodrow Wilson.
Every Democratic president.
Not every. You're generalizing. You're generalizing.
I just named all of them in this century.
And I carved out some exceptions. There were some good men in that bunch.
Which
there were
ones?
some prevaricators like Clinton and LBJ.
The Republicans,
some philanderers like Clinton and LBJ. Jimmy Carter, FDR.
Jimmy
Truman.
Carter. Now you're praising Jimmy Carter.
They were noble men. They were men of character.
But the Republicans did their best to not compromise with them one iota and to obstruct their agenda every step of the way.
I think Carter got a pass the first couple of years. He did.
Carter had a 63 Democratic Senate for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That's enough to get anything passed without the Republican
we
Party.
Talked about playing by the rules you get dealt.
The Republicans have done 400 some odd filibusters.
Okay.
More filibusters just in the Obama term than every single president in every term in all of American history combined. I predicted in 2010, I said it very clearly, I said on this show, that if the Republicans take over, we're going to have gridlock and no government for the next 2 years, and now it's extending into 4 years. That prediction, I'm safe to say, was a correct prediction. Is it your belief that the American people, at their heart, really don't want any government and simply want the government to fail and don't want Congress to ever succeed?
Mark, you act like the government is some noble from some other planet force that arrived here yesterday as part of an expedition.
Is it always bad?
To save humanity. No, but it's not always good. Most Americans want government to do very, very little. They want their check from the VA. They want their doctor's visits from Medicaid.
They also want their highways.
They do, but there's a whole lot of
They also want their parks.
There's a whole lot of other stuff.
They also want clean air and clean water.
They don't want.
They also want Wall Street regulated so they don't destroy the economy.
Can I speak now? They don't want the NSA. They don't want the intelligence community. They don't want the National Geospatial Agency. They don't want the National Reconnaissance Office. They don't want these giant bureaucratic firms eavesdropping, reading every Gmail and hearing every phone call.
Then I'll tell you what.
They don't.
Let's close on agreement. Because when it comes to the NSA, I oppose it under George Bush.
It's unconstitutional.
I oppose it under George
Thank
Bush.
you for being consistent.
And I oppose it under President Obama. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution says very clearly that you have the right to be secure in your person's papers and effects unless they have probable cause to believe you've committed a crime. It's very simple. You think someone's a terrorist, you go, you get yourself a warrant, and then go ahead and check every data you wish to check. I'm fine with that. But to take 200 million Americans' metadata, every time I call my mother, there's someone in the NSA has a record of, of the day and how long I talked. To me, that's completely inappropriate. I opposed it under Obama. I opposed it under Bush. I opposed it under Obama.
I appreciate that.
And to our credit, the left and the right came together. Amash and Conyers don't agree on much, but they agreed.
And Senator Wyden's in there too.
And almost they came very, very close to stopping the NSA. I agree with you. I'm all for fighting the war on terror, but let's do it constitutionally. Let's get a warrant first. So it's nice at least to end this on a note of agreement.
Let's not make this Constitution that we love a fairy tale.
I agree. We absolutely have to uphold by. Thanks, Matt. It's always a
pleasure
Mark. To have you on the air. Folks, if you want to know more about Matt, you can go to the new to the American Majority and check out .org. If you want to find out more about me, go to my website, marklevinetalk.com. If you missed any portion of this show, you can see the rest of it there. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mark Levine Talk. That's MarkLevine TALK. Please don't confuse me with that other guy. I'm on radio all the time. Check it out, and we'll be back for another edition of the Inside Scoop. Thanks again.
Thank you.